You're listening to the E2C Network, podcast by Auburn fans for Auburn fans. Where you go, Auburn family, and welcome back to Inside the Jungle, your source for Auburn men's basketball analysis and discussion here on the E2C Network. Well, the season may be done for the Auburn Tigers at least, but we have many things that we need to break down in regards to the Auburn men's basketball program. There have been a few people leaving, a few people coming in, maybe more to leave and come in the future. We don't know. There's lots still going on, rumors and speculation out there. There's this little thing called the NCAA tournament, March Madness going on that Auburn unfortunately is not part of, but we're still finding ways to insert ourselves into it. All that's been going on. We got bored. We were ready to talk some basketball again, so we are back together. I'm your host, Kyle, again with my friend and co-host, Mr. Gray Oldenburg. Gray, welcome back.
Thank you, Kyle.
You know, look, we talked about it. We weren't going to come back until the season was officially done all the way. There's just too much been going on with this Auburn basketball program not to get together and meet and talk.
I agree. There's a lot of speculation, a lot of movement, and both in and out, and a lot of looking forward to next year, a lot of basketball being played right now. Let's discuss.
2 points of clarification for the listeners here. As always, when we talk about these certain topics, my luck is usually things change the second I put a podcast episode out. So if you're hearing something that may be a little bit out of date, don't be shocked, because there's a lot, like Gray has said, there's a lot of movement, things in motion right now, and rightfully so. You know, there's a lot of talent that's on this Auburn squad, a lot of talent coming in, and so things are a very fluid situation right now. We will be getting back together once all of NCAA basketball is finalized, and maybe like a week or and some change after that, just to see how the waters are going to settle with the rest of the news around the Auburn basketball program. But we'll do our season review, then we'll walk through the entire season, the beginning, the middle of it, and how it all shook it at the end. But right now, let's talk about the things that have been developing, and there are a lot of them for this Auburn basketball program, primarily in the discussion realm of departures. I think that's where we need to go ahead and get the Band-Aid ripped off, don't you think?
Yeah, let's do it.
It's a little tough. I was, as many people, were shocked to learn that Justin Powell was going to leave Auburn. And we don't know where, as of this moment, he's going. A lot of rumors out there, but I just want to hear your initial thoughts, your speculations. What are you feeling about Justin Powell deciding to leave the program?
You know, just like you said, a lot of people were confused. A lot of people were shocked, you know, myself included. I didn't expect this. I don't think anybody really did. I don't think the coaching staff or his teammates did. But you look at a kid who jumped off immediately and was clicking on all cylinders at the beginning of the year. You know, won the starting job over Turbo, playing point guard. I don't know if that's really his natural position, but
it sure looked like it though for a little bit.
I agree. Yeah. So, and then he had the concussion, and, you know, with COVID, you know, all he could do was sit in a room by himself without anything. Couldn't go play basketball, couldn't hang out with friends, couldn't do schoolwork. You know, I mean, as much as we hate to see it, you know, you kind of break it down and you can understand it a little more.
So we did what I will call a therapy session on YouTube Live. If you haven't come on over to the ETC Network YouTube channel, we do a lot of live streams there where I just felt the need to get on there. And I was processing it myself, but a lot of the people who jumped in the live chat even were trying to figure this one out, because what happened? Because if Sharife Cooper does go, that leaves a giant hole to fill in terms of point guard, but guard especially. So we thought that was right for the taking for Justin Powell. So why would you decide to go? I mean, obviously there's the whole his injury on top of isolation because of that injury and COVID and stuff. And you wonder, and I guess my mind went to first homesickness. I mean, do you think that played a factor into it at all?
Maybe so, and maybe we'll see that and where he ends up next. You know, we were discussing pre-show about, you know, he's getting looks from, you know, that school up north. It's coached by Calipari.
Is it weird to you that we live in a time where we can't even mention Kentucky? Like, we used to do that. We still do that to Alabama, but now we do that at Kentucky. That's just weird to me.
But, you know, he's getting looks from those teams that, you know, that's where he's from. So maybe that is the reason. You know, I can understand it, especially with his injury and COVID and not being able to, you know, get the full college experience as a star freshman on the basketball team. So It's weird. It's a
Yeah.
weird one.
There's so many little different nuances to this story that's why I think makes it so intriguing, because the stars seem to have lined for him to be potentially either the guy, one of the big guys on campus next season, or be alongside the guy in Sharife Cooper and really become a tandem. I think the biggest disappointment, and I heard fan after fan after fan echo this, whether it was written or verbal form, I just wanted to see the two of them together, and we just couldn't get it to align this year.
Yeah.
Whether it was a eligibility issue for Sharif, injury for Justin, and then an injury for Sharif, it just was not meant to be. And I think there are a lot of things that you can go back in Auburn's athletics history and say what might have been. Yeah. I think that's going to be one of the cases here, is what might have been for Justin Powell and Sharife Cooper had they been able to play together, because I think you obviously saw the talent that Justin has with the position that he was put in the early part of the season. Had he not gotten injured, you kind of wonder, maybe he is gone anyway, the NBA draft. So very high trajectory for him. So if you had to guess right now, where do you think Justin's going?
Off the top of my head right now, you're putting me on the spot.
I love to do that.
I'm going to say Louisville.
Okay. I do think it's going to be somewhere in the area of home. I think that kind of makes sense with everything that he's been through. There is that certain team up north that apparently may have even, the rumors are out there. Every time I address a rumor, I want to make sure I make the statement. I think there is always some degree of truth to a rumor, but to what degree is the question I ask. So John Calipari would be stupid if he didn't try to get in contact with him, his family, to test the waters to see if he'd be willing to come back. So John Calipari, you're stupid if you don't. However, I'm angry if you did, because that means you stole my player from me. There were some rumblings about Western Kentucky. I actually think that would be a great fit for him personally, and not that I don't think he doesn't deserve to be at a top tier. And I don't mean no slight to Western Kentucky, but it's not Auburn. It's not Kentucky. It's not Florida. It's not LSU or, well, supposedly this year, Alabama. We'll get to that. We're getting there. I just think there's a lot of options for him, but I wouldn't be surprised if he'd go home. Let's talk about this one, though. I don't think a lot of people were shocked by this one, but it stung a little after the fact of Justin Powell announcing that he was leaving. Jamal Johnson decides that he is going to not only leave the program, but take his talents, as LeBron James would say, to not to South Beach, but to Iron City. He is going to be a UAB Blazer. You know what? I was very sad for Jamal when he left, but I couldn't be happier for him now, because I think he is going to flourish in Birmingham. Look, what do you think about that move for him?
This is going to be awesome. Jamal is going to be great up at UAB. that's a UAB team that, a certain team across the state doesn't really like to schedule because of that, gritty mentality of that UAB team coached by former SEC coach Andy Kennedy. Mm-hmm. He's gonna be great there, especially with how much he kind of jumped up in production this year at Auburn.
Absolutely. He definitely is another one of those players with opportunity. They seized it and made the most of what and did things that they normally wouldn't be asked to do. Jamal took over a lot of the point guard responsibilities to, open up the floor more for some other players that were being forced into those roles too. So I think he showed his versatility. I think he showed his reliability, his flexibility. And I think that's very attractive to a program like UAB, who's looking for, and I don't think it's too far of a stretch to say, a star in Jamal Johnson. And I think he will be a star there. And, Bruce and Andy, from what I understand, have a pretty decent relationship in terms of, friendliness and stuff like that. I would not be shocked if we're going to get another round of UAB versus Auburn basketball coming up here very soon. Sign me up for that matchup, because if I get to watch Jamal play against his old team, of course I'm pulling for Auburn, but I have a little soft spot for our former players, because to some degree, they are still Auburn Tigers. So Jamal Johnson heading off to UAB, happy for him, sad to see him go, but a guy I think that is a very good decision for. This is one that I expected, and actually it was so expected that I forgot about it, that it was even a reality. I even had to ask you, wait a minute, when did this happen? Javon Franklin has decided to leave the program. We do not know his destination. What do you think about this move? Right decision, wrong decision? What do you think?
I think it's the right decision, especially if you consider him a front court guy, maybe a small forward. That front court is just getting even more crowded with the guy coming in as a freshman next year. So I think it's a good decision. You know, I think he'll be a junior right next year, maybe a senior. You know, go get some playing time, go to a small school, and really dominate and prove yourself. And I think that's a great move for Javon Franklin.
Yeah, if I had like pointed out a couple, I would thought it would be Javon Franklin and Chris Moore that I thought would be one or the two or both leaving. Chris has still decided to stay at this point. I'm happy. Obviously, I don't want to see anybody go, but the fact is we've got a lot of talent coming in, and we got to make sure the chess pieces line up for a good run next year, especially if you're able somehow underneath the stars and the moons to align to get Sharife Cooper to stay here. With what's coming in. So unfortunately, I just don't see a world where Javon Franklin, with what he produced this year, getting much more time. So I think it is in his benefit to take a step away. So we have out of transfers, which the amount is shocking. We had one big shock, one that we were maybe not surprised by, but it was still kind of like, oh, okay, kind of made you turn your head for a second. And then one that was not shocking. So already an eventful transfer season. Do you foresee anyone else leaving the Tigers transfer wise? We're getting to some others in a second.
Yeah, I don't think so. I say that, and somebody.
Of course, now you jinxed us.
Oh yeah, of course. But I don't think so, because at this point, I think it would have already happened because of how crowded the transfer market is now.
The only thing that makes me question that is depending on who might still transfer in.
Yeah.
If there are some of these names out there that people are speculating to come in, there might be a situation where somebody else might need to go find some other playing time elsewhere. But we shall see. Speaking of transferring in, let's talk about some that have. First one to talk about, a lot of people got really excited about this one. Zep Jasper transferred over from Charlotte. A guard. Charleston, excuse me. One of those Carolina schools over there, Charleston, excuse me. Thank you for the clarification. But he'll be coming in as a combo guard, I think is what you describe him as, can play both. Not a true point guard in the sense is what we were really looking for. We'll talk about that in just a second. But your overall reaction and anticipations about Zep being part of the program?
I like it. I really like it. He's bringing that hard-nosed defense here. His nickname is the Honey Badger, and there is reasons for it.
I don't know how I feel about having a honey badger, though. Can we have a different animal? Surely, with my zoology degree, I can come up with something better than that. It doesn't feel right having a honey badger on an Auburn program. But hey, if that produces numbers for us, great defense is what he's supposedly known for. And there was a time at a certain point in this season where Auburn was getting gashed up the middle in their front court, and this could be something that really helps. Some that penetration that they were seeing in the middle, if he's that good of a defender. We've seen how much of a difference maker a great defending guard can make in one Davion Mitchell for the Baylor Bears, who used to be a Tiger, and how much of a ball hawk he is. So if that's what we've got in Zep Jasper, you have a lot to be excited about, Auburn Tiger fans. Let's talk about another one. Xavier Pinson, transfer over from Missouri. We poached him from an SEC school. My anticipation is that this is a point guard as well. Is that kind of what you see happening here?
Yeah. I love to see Pinson come in. He would be. I mean, that's a special. He was so good at Missouri this year, and Missouri had that big. I forget his name is losing me right now.
Yeah, I can't think of it either.
Yeah, but you know who I'm talking about. He was so good, off of him. Pinson, I think went for like 30 against Alabama when they beat Alabama in Columbia this year. He's a true scorer, and he can share the ball. He's experienced. That's what we need, is an experienced guard. I'd be full on board with Auburn going all at Xavier Pinson from Missouri.
Yeah, a lot of people are really wanting this to happen. And, I guess, does that signal to you, though, would this maybe become a reality? What does that signal to you about Sharif Cooper? Do you think this tells you anything about that situation?
I think it does. Sadly, I think if Cooper leaves, Pinson would be crazy not to take this job.
Yeah.
and not to commit here. I mean, I think he'd be crazy not to anyway,
Right.
even with Cooper, but if Cooper Pinson steps in as the starting point guard, I don't think there's any question about it. And, you get to play with these guys coming in and the guys coming back. I mean, I love for it to happen. It needs to happen. That's what I need to say. It needs to happen. It needs to happen.
So let me say this too. A lot of what I was talking about on those live streams is Auburn potentially running a platoon system, similar to what Kentucky did a couple of seasons ago, where they basically just had a line change in hockey terms. An entire group comes in and out at the same time. And, I wonder, does Xavier Pinson, even if Sharife Cooper if you're Bruce Pearl, you don't go to him and say, yeah, he's the starting point guard, but do you see all this talent that I've got to work in? They need time as well, which means I need someone to lead group 1B in on this system. So I think you can potentially sway him either, and especially if you get Sharife Cooper back, I think you sway him and say, look, I don't think Missouri is winning a championship anytime soon. I convinced my best prospect, my two best prospects, to come be here at the same time together ever. We're making a championship run, and we need a solid point guard option when Sharif's not here to be here. So if you want to win a championship, this is your team. So you can potentially make it there. Another potential rumor out there, I think it's lost a little bit of steam, but we should address it because I think some people would be mad at us if we didn't. Walker Kessler of UNC, there was a lot of discussion in the recruiting cycle whether he was going to come to Auburn. I honestly never bought into that one as much. I don't know why so many people thought that one was going to happen. Just never really stuck out to me. And my understanding is there's been a little bit of steam lost on that at this point. Is that what you're anticipating?
Yeah, I think since I wrote that, a lot of steam has been lost. Right when Kessler announced, it was like, okay, let's go back to who was recruiting him. I guess maybe we can find somebody out of there. And the two other schools that were really big, or three other schools that were really big on Kessler besides North Carolina, were Georgia, Auburn, and Duke. Mm-hmm. And none of those three are really gaining ground on Kessler. It's just something to keep an eye on. I think Gonzaga is really gaining on Walker, the 7-1 center from Carolina.
I'll be honest with you here, and this is kind of a quick aside to something we'll talk about in just a minute, but I'm kind of really getting concerned about Gonzaga as a program. They seem to be lining themselves up for not just the success that we've known them for. I mean, Gonzaga is someone you expect in the tournament every single year, and they're always there. Usually they disappoint me. This year, they're, the year I don't anticipate them to do a whole lot, they do it all. Are you getting concerned that we may be seeing a juggernaut rising out of the ashes?
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Look, Gonzaga's been building for years now, and I think it's finally starting to catch up with everybody, especially with the dogs like the Blue Bloods, like Auburn and Kentucky and North Carolina and Duke, and them not having huge years this year. I mean, Gonzaga, this year they are a buzzsaw right now. And we're recording this before the Final Four. I would be shocked if we record this and our season review and they're not the national champion.
Oh, we'll talk about that in just a second. I got opinions about that.
Hey, Auburn fans, I want to take a quick timeout from this episode to bring your attention to something very special. Here at the E2C Network, we pride ourselves on bringing you the best content for Auburn fans out there. And best of all, it's free to you. But just because it's free doesn't mean there aren't costs, especially when you have a library of hundreds of podcasts, videos, blogs, and more. Many of you have reached out and asked how you can support this network in the past. Well, now I have your answer. It's called the E2C Network Booster Club over at patreon.com/E2C Network. There you'll find a membership monthly reward system where you can sign up for as little as $1 and get different perks at different tiers. Some of those perks include things such as apparel, eligibility to join us on future podcasts, recognition as an E2C Network booster, exclusive communications, and bonus content that is available nowhere else. If you love this network and want to help us keep producing podcasts like this one, please head on over to patreon.com/E2C Network to join the E2C Network Booster Club. You can also get there by going to our website, e2cnetwork.com/support. Whether you decide to join or not, we are still so appreciative that you would support us by just listening and being here, because each and every one of you is part of our E2C Network family. Well, that's it. Timeout's over. Let's get back into the episode.
Well, let's talk about this. We've talked about transfers out, transfers in. We've got other options for people leaving or deciding to stay. That is through the pro draft. It's something that Auburn didn't get to talk a lot about previous to Bruce Pearl. That's become a bigger reality since he's been here. Obviously, with Chuba Okeke getting drafted, then Isaac Okoro in the top 5 last year. There was a moment in this season where there were 3 potential draftees, and those were going to be JT Thor, Justin Powell, and Alton Flanagan, because Sharife Cooper wasn't even here, and there were still people speculating Sharife Cooper was going to be there. Obviously, 2 of the 4 are not happening because they haven't declared for anything, and one's left the program. Sharife Cooper, we still continue to watch. We'll maybe give some predictions on that in just a second. But JT Thor did announce that he would go to the draft, and I was warning. There were a lot of concerned fans out there that were like, I just don't want him to go draft. I was like, guys, he's going to declare for the draft.
Yes.
It would be an idiot not to, because you get to come back to a certain degree. I take it you think he made the right decision.
I think he did. Absolutely. He just like you said, he would be an idiot not to. I think Alan Flanagan should as well. Go get advice from these scouts and these GMs and talk to these coaches and talk to these trainers and talk to agents. Don't hire an agent, please. but talk to these agents. See where you stand. That's kind of the whole point of testing the draft water, testing the NBA draft waters. I think right now JT Thor and Alan Flanagan and Sharife Cooper, all 3 should. Only one's done it yet. Thor, I think all should go get where you're projected. Go get what they're looking at you. Go get who's looking at you, and go from there. Make a decision. And, that decision needs to be based on, where you are in the draft, where you're going to, how much money it is, maybe, where you're,
Yeah.
It's the little things. It's really the little things about that. And Auburn fans, it was unbelievable the amount of Auburn fans that were like, oh no, we lost JT Thor. No, we have not. JT Thor is in the draft.
It's
Auburn fans are used to, once you declare for the NFL draft, you're gone.
Yeah.
Once you declare for the NBA draft, you can come back. Jared did it. Bryce did it. I think Chuma did it his freshman year. And right now I see Thor, if he, finds a team, maybe early second round, mid second round to pick him, maybe a team that doesn't need help right now, but is really good at developing those kind of players. He's got great dimensions. He's got great talent. He's got great potential. Thor, but this is a guy that if he comes back next year, I would project him in the lottery.
So wait a second. Do you think there's a high potential, when I say high, greater than 50% chance that he goes in the second round at the very least this year?
I think it could happen. I wouldn't say over 50% though.
Okay.
Just because it's a short season. Auburn didn't really have the attention besides, with Cooper, because we weren't, going to the tournament, and he couldn't show off in March like he normally does, like a lot of guys normally do, especially when Chuma did. I just think he just needs to find one fit that he likes, and he'll go. But
yeah.
I don't know if we're going to find that fit.
Yeah, it's definitely a niche fit that he has to find. If he does, that could spell trouble for Auburn in the sense that he leaves the program, but good in the sense that we're sending someone else into the draft yet again. And that'll have been 3 years in a row that Auburn has someone drafted. And there's a high chance it could happen between Sharif Cooper potentially going and JT Thor being there now, that could still maintain. I guess the thing that I think about with this is, if you remember, he had to reclassify to participate this year. To actually come in to be a part of the program with this athletic year. So he's still young. He's a guy that, like you said, has great dimensions, but he has not filled out into those dimensions yet. So I do think that scouts are going to look at him and say, yeah, we like this. We don't want to pay the money you deserve yet. We think you deserve this money, but we'd like to see another season where you fill out a little bit and you show us that even when you kind of fill in your frame out, that you can still produce these type of phenomenal, plays and moves. Show us you can still dribble at that height and lankiness. Show us that you can, dunk with the best and that you can still shoot it from beyond the 3-point arc. I think if he chooses to stay, his stock skyrockets, and we could be talking about a top 10 draft pick at the end of the season. Sharif Cooper watch. We've already touched on it a lot. A lot of the decisions, a lot of the speculation hinges upon this. No, we started this whole season, preseason, with Sharif Cooper watch. Is he going to commit to Auburn? Now we're ending it with Sharif Cooper watch. So where you're sitting right now, obviously this will probably change once we send out this podcast, because that's just our life.
Yes, it will.
But where you're sitting right now, the first question I want from you, will Sharif Cooper enter the draft?
Will he enter the draft?
Will he enter the draft?
100%, yes.
Okay. Second question, the tougher question, maybe because you don't want to give the answer or just because you don't know. Does Sharif Cooper go to the NBA next season?
I don't really know. The last time we recorded a podcast was the NCAA tournament preview, and we were doing the brackets. And, at that time, I kind of thought it was about 50-50 because, we were hearing some things, maybe he's coming back. Maybe he wants to play a full season. Maybe he wants to play with Jabari and JT again. And then now we're seeing things that he's projected top 20. And it's like, that's really hard money to turn down, and that's a good spot for him too. Because he's not going too high where he needs to be a superstar, but he's not going too low where he's going to get drowned by other superstars. I'm going to say Sharife Cooper will be on an NBA team next year.
Wow. That's tough to hear that you're verbalizing that right now. I'm going to be honest with you. I have waffled back and forth on this a lot. And it's happened a lot, honestly, not just in this subject, but a lot of things that we've been speculating on with Auburn athletics. A lot of football stuff obviously comes into mind there, but I'm actually leaning the opposite way. And I cannot pinpoint why. I'm not just saying that just for the sake of argument, just because we're trying to put on a show here, but there is something about this situation. The fact that Xavier Pinson has not taken that offer yet tells me, and I think he has the potential, as we addressed, to take the offer even if Sharif Cooper comes. But I think he wants to know what he's working with. And I think that there is just something out there that's holding Sharif back from making this decision. Again, I'm going to hit send. I'm going to be wrong. But there's something about this that even if he declares, I'm just anticipating it, right? I think Auburn fans should anticipate it. I tried to warn them about JT Thor, tried to warn them about, some people transferring. I wasn't ready for Justin Powell, but I knew some of the other ones might be happening at least some point in the future. So where I'm sitting at right now, it kind of is still a push situation for me, but it's probably a little bit more in favor of Auburn still having him at the end of all of these shenanigans. Just get ready, Auburn fans. There's going to be speculation galore. He's going to go to the draft, barring some big surprise. Sharif Cooper watch continues. It was just bookended by a season. So. I cannot take this anymore. All right. So that's all of the transfers in and out so far, the transfer market, pro draft, and speculation about potential pro draftees for the Auburn basketball program. See, this is why we had to do an episode before the season preview, because there was too much to talk about alone, and we've not had that blessing in quite some time. Very briefly, I'd like us to maybe address the NCAA tournament thus far. We are recording this after the Final Four has been set. The Final Four, if I have it correct in my head, the big surprise, number 11, UCLA, number 1, Gonzaga, number 1, Baylor, and number 2, Houston. Now, if I had asked you and told you this Final Four at the beginning of the preview, would you have been super shocked by it?
Yes, absolutely. I wouldn't be shocked at 3 of them, but I would be shocked at 1, yes.
1 UCLA, I think, is taking everybody by surprise.
Yes.
But the funny thing about that is the funny thing about it is everybody was paying attention to these other Cinderella stories and then they just kept on. Yeah. they just kept on and going on into the tournament and just said, hey, look, we're in the Final Four, guys. Just give me some things that stuck out to you in the tournament so far.
Man, I can't go away from that Oral Roberts Ohio State upset.
Yeah.
That was, I mean, that's only happened like 8 times maybe. And not only for them to beat Oral Roberts, that they beat Florida and made it to the Sweet 16 and should have beat Arkansas. They only lost to Arkansas by like what, 2?
Yeah.
They were 15. They were 2 points away from being the first 15 seed to the Elite 8. And that's crazy. I mean, that's the story. You know, we have UCLA in the Final Four right now, which is absurd, but the Oral Roberts is the story. They were the Cinderella story this year.
Obviously, Auburn fans cheered on the Ohio Bobcats, taking revenge vicariously through them over the Virginia Cavaliers. That was nice. And then there was the Alabama Crimson Tide, the darlings of the NCAA tournament. They were going to win it all. Even Sir Charles, which I think was totally him trying to jinx them. You know, look, you could see him sitting at the desk there during, you know, the halftime shows and stuff like that. And they'd talk to him. Oh, he's got him in his Final Four. And he'd just say, yeah, dude. And then I just saw that glint in his eye. And I said, Charles, you devious little son of a gun. You know exactly what you're doing. But what did you think about Alabama? The whole, you know, not so great Cinderella story for them. What's your opinions about all that?
You know, they had a great year. I think it'll be good for Auburn to have somebody. I think Bruce could use that. You know, I think Nate Oates is building something not just this year. You know, they got good talent coming in next year as well. They're building something over there too. I don't know what they're really building, but they're building.
They need to build a new arena.
I agree. The airplane hangar. No, they had a good year. I would say their tournament run was a little underwhelming.
Yes.
Which was great to watch. But, you know, they beat 15 seed Iona and Rick Pitino by a few points. And then they crushed Maryland, a 10 seed, by like 20 something. And then UCLA. And then UCLA came on and was like, no, we're making the Final Four. We are making the Final Four.
Not so much.
They just, I mean, you want to talk about the free throws for Alabama?
Free throws win and lose championships, my friend. And I've never been happier.
Exactly what happened there.
Never been happier to see
25.
That. Oh, gosh.
The worst free throw shooting performance since 2003 Kansas in the national championship.
You know, there are a few things in this world that make me happier than to watch Alabama struggle with the one area that I'm a stickler for. And I've never been so happy to see a basketball that's at the free throw position being thrown up there and just careen off every single time. It made me oddly, probably disturbingly giddy. And I'm not ashamed of it. I'm sorry, I'm not. So anyway.
You shouldn't be. That was great.
Yeah. You know, obviously I predicted them to go out in the Sweet 16. A lot of people, I think I really found this scenario happen with a lot of people. Either you were like our guest co-host, Graham Fowler, which by the way, Graham, let me just give you, I know he's listening to this, buddy. What happened? And Gray, I'm not gonna let you off the hook either. You're down there in the bottom of that. Bracket
I am.
too.
I had Texas in the Final Four, and they lost to Abilene Christian. But hey, you sat there as well in that podcast and said Michigan State. Well, they lost that Final Four UCLA team.
Listen. If it hadn't been for UCLA, you shouldn't count out Tom Izzo. So that's going to be the new thing. If UCLA runs into them, count out Tom Izzo. Yeah, I knew that you and Graham were going to come running over to me to mention that. Graham beat you to it. So, you know, that was, I knew that was coming. And, hey, look, it's all in fun. It's, you know, it's been a great tournament. Great back after 2 years away from that. So many upsets, so many fun games to watch, and especially in the early rounds. And I would say for the most part, Sweet 16 and some of the Elite Eight were pretty fun to watch as well. So I think the Final Four is going to be fun. Hopefully you'll
national champion prediction.
I predicted the Baylor Bears. I think there's a little bit of my orange and blue tint on that because Davion Mitchell's there. Do you really think it's going to be Gonzaga?
Yes.
Is it just because of the Fu Manchu with Timmy?
Absolutely. I mean, that dude is the best college basketball player of all time now with that.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves, but okay. Sure. I will say this, impressive facial hair, yes. And he's another one of those players like Michael Carrera, as I often bring up, that
he's going to be there forever.
Well,
he's just a sophomore.
That, and he just doesn't look like he should be good. Like at basketball, there's just something about him. I've heard several just like prominent radio personalities. It's like, guys, he doesn't look good at basketball to me, but he is. And I cannot figure it out for the life of me. I think that's why he's so good, is because everybody walks and it's like, oh, this guy can't take me.
Yeah.
He did.
Yep.
So anyway, it's been a fun tournament. Plenty more to talk about. Obviously, we'll talk about the ramifications of everything at the end of all of this. There's no SEC teams, obviously, so everything's wrapped up that way. But it'll be fun just to kind of talk about who won it all if we get to celebrate Davion Mitchell being a champion at the end of all of his basketball journey in college and all of that in between. But it has been fun talking with you, at least getting a head start on our postseason discussions with all of these transfers, many more rumors, and things to talk about coming up in the future. So as we head out, where can they find you on social media if they want to rag you about your place in our bracket challenge?
Well, you can find me on Twitter or on Instagram at Twitter at Gray Oldenburg or on Instagram at Gray021.
And if you want to find me, you can do so on Twitter at TigerEye24. We really appreciate you listening to this episode. More coming up in the future. Until we talk to you again, War Eagle.
Before you get out of here, we want to remind you of a couple things. Head over to e2cnetwork.com, our website where you can find everything that you'll ever need from us, podcasts, blogs, and even ways to help support the show. If you want to find individual episodes, you can download all of these on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play. So until we see you again, I want to remind you of one thing, that here at the network, we believe in Auburn and love it. The only question remains, do you?